Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry about that.
Let's start again. So, Thursday edition, this is where I'm going to talk about the plant of the week, and it is Italian ranunculus. A little different than the Bloomsdale that you're used to. So, this is the plant of the month. So we always talk about like a really cool plant every Thursday typically, something that's really beautiful, something that's really neat and interesting, something that's specific just to us, that's an exclusive thing here at Rogers. But we also run this really amazing program, which is the plant of the month. The plant of the month is the Italian ranunculus, and what that means is that it is a buy two, get one free deal, which is really amazing. So it's last month it was the anemones. Before that it was poppies. And these have all been Italian bred ones. So they're things we're used to seeing all the time. But these are just a little bit different. And when you see them, you can tell because, I mean, just look at these flowers, right? They're gargantuan. This is something you're probably not used to seeing, right? So the Bloomsdale ones, which is the variety of ranunculus that you usually see in nursery, they're absolutely beautiful, but the flowers are so much smaller. I mean, this one's huge. It's kind of crazy. It's like the size of a saucer, which is just so beautiful. So these Italian grown ones are grown for being specifically really sturdy stems. So just like with the anemones and the poppies that we had, same thing, really sturdy stems, really good for cut. So really big, extra showy flowers, which is really fantastic. So it's really nice to go through, and when they're really big and beautiful like this, this is when I want you to deadhead them a little bit early so you can bring them inside and enjoy them for a little bit longer, or put them in your hat like I always do. So they're absolutely gorgeous, really nice and big and full and lush. Ranunculus are something that's grown by a bulb, more correctly said a chrome. So if you've ever seen them, you know, when we think bulbs, we think about cute little tulip bulbs, something that looks kind of like an onion, essentially. But if you ever see what the ranunculus bulb is, which is a chrome, it looks like a string of dirty, ugly bananas. It's just really kind of crazy. It's like little fingery things. They're brown. They're kind of creepy looking. That's what the ranunculus grow from. So they store all their energy down inside from the previous year. And then they use that energy in the beginning to push out their new growth. And I think there's a lot of misconception about how that works. So people think I gotta fertilize so that way they come back really beautiful next year. But the thing with that is they only use that energy in the very beginning to kind of force out their new growth. You have to keep fertilizing them. With something like this, when you buy them grown like this, these are not going to come back for you next year. So it's something that you are going to treat as a regular annual and not something that you're expecting to come back next year. Usually when they grow them in nurseries like this for bedding plants, and that's what these are in these beautiful little 4-inch pots, they're grown from seed. So you can actually grow bulbs from seed, which is kind of weirdly mind-blowing that you can do it both ways. And then a lot of times they're grown from tissue culture, which is a whole nother thing. So if we want to get into biology sometime, you let me know and we'll do a video for that. But yeah, this is something that you're going to plant as a bedding plant. This is going to be beautiful all through spring, and then in the summertime, this is when they're going to be done. Then you're going to take them out. These make a really beautiful instant, just lush pop of color. They don't tend to get too tall, which is really nice. And they look really good in mass planting. So if you come in here, we're going to have our spring opening soon. We've planted ranunculus everywhere, and big, beautiful swaths of color. They just really make a huge impact because the flower is so big, it's so showy, it's so layered inside. There's just something so totally satisfying about the way this looks, and it's just how beautiful it is. But you do want to fertilize. So fertilize. I tell you this with all of your annual plants. You want to feed them really heavy because they have a shorter lifespan. And the whole point of them is flowers, right? So it's really good if you're walking around your garden, you look around and you have a little space and you're like, gosh, something needs to be there. This is a great thing to fill in and get those spots to really pop in your garden, especially in like front yards. Everybody can see it. It's just so totally beautiful. And you want to fertilize them. So I love the rose and flower mix, and also too with annuals, I like to use the one that you mix in with water, especially if you're doing it in containers. These are really good container plants. It's very hard to use the granular where you just throw down on the ground in a container, because typically your container should hopefully be packed pretty full. And you don't want to get the granular stuff inside the flower because it'll get all funky and yucky. You don't want to get it inside the foliage, like down inside, like stuck between the stems and the leaves. So this is a really nice one to use because it works really well to just mix it with water and get that watered right into the pot or even into the ground. If I have these in the ground, I tend to use this one because I'm just going to scatter it in between because I don't have those two packed tight. And the other thing that you got to watch with them is the slugs. So because they're so soft and they're so nice and so tender, slugs love them. So you want to make sure that you're actually using a good slug bait for them. So you just sprinkle this down on the ground. If you've ever had problem with slugs, this is really nice. This is organic. Here at Rogers Gardens, we are all organic. We don't sell any inorganic fertilizers or slug baits or sprays for that matter. So this is really a nice one. It's pet safe, so you don't have to worry about it. You just sprinkle it down on the ground. The slugs eat it, and then they just can't eat anymore, so they won't eat your plants. And keep them deadheaded. So that means going in, and I often get asked this question, I talk about it all the time, but if you're going to deadhead something, you're going to find the flower that's looking like it's almost done, right? You're going to take your pruners and you're going to follow the stem down all the way down to the bottom of where you can. You're going to cut that. And then hopefully you're going to deadhead them when they look like this. This would be a perfect one for deadheading because you could bring them inside. So it's not totally done yet, but this would be a really beautiful one to deadhead and bring inside. They want full sun, so you want to make sure that they're in a really nice sunny location so you get really nice beautiful flowers, and then they don't get too stretchy and too crazy. And then the other thing you want to make sure that you're doing is good watering. So you need to water them pretty consistently. So I would say 3 times a week. They don't want to be soggy, but they do not want to dry out. If they start wilting, they have a really hard time coming back from that. In that way that they're very much a drama queen. So if they wilt, especially if you have flowers that are getting started, those flowers tend to get kind of ruined. Even when you water them, they perk back up. You'll notice that it'll have a hard time opening and the edges will be a little crispy. So anytime someone brings me a flower that looks like that, I'll ask them, did you ever have a moment when these wilted and you didn't water it consistently enough? Or maybe when you first planted them, you didn't water them in and they kind of had a little bit of a wilting spell? And usually the answer to that is yes. So, but absolutely beautiful. These actually don't mind a little bit of overhead watering. It's not a really good practice to have, but because they're so short, it makes it a little bit easier. If you do have to overhead water a little bit, I wouldn't make it a habit of overhead watering these, but these are not something, you look at them and you think the flowers are so tight, kind of like an azalea or a camellia or even roses that have problems with that. These actually don't have a problem with that, which is kind of amazing. The first time I saw a ranuncula that I absolutely fell in love, it's something I've always known, but I remember going to the Getty Garden, the modern one, and walking through that garden. If you haven't been there, it's a really good time to go right now because it's really starting to come in, and they had planted a huge swath of these white and purple kind of bicolor ones. And I remember just walking by and seeing it and just how amazing that flower is, and looking at that flower going, gosh, that's so gorgeous. And ever since then, totally in love, totally enamored. So it is the plant of the month. You buy 2, you get 1 free, which is pretty amazing. That's going to be all through March. So it's a great time to fill in those little areas, get that extra pop of color, get yourself ready for spring, throw them in some containers, put them by your front door, make that really showy, beautiful statement with these, and just wow everybody. And they all look at you and go, gosh, how'd you grow that? And you're like, I bought it at Rogers. So yeah, it's a really, really great deal. We are open for questions too. So if you're watching this live and you have any questions about your garden, you can add those down below and we'll answer some questions for you as well. Do we have any questions?
Yes, the first question is, if I pick a pot at Rogers and pick the flowers, do you guys have a potting service to put them together?
We do. So we have 2 different things that you can do. We have a free service where you can pick your pot, you can pick your plant. We have a whole big potting station here where you can pot it up yourself. The soil is free, which is really nice. Who wants to spend money on dirt, right? It's good to do though. Good soil is really important. But we do offer the free soil. So if you want to do something and have something cute that you pot up yourself, you can use our potting station totally for free. Soil's totally free. And then you just pay for your plants in your container that you use. We also have an original design studio. If you've ever been here and you've walked through and seen all the beautiful planted up baskets and containers and stuff, they're just absolutely gorgeous. We do those here in-house. We have a fantastic team of ladies that work down in there, and they make the most beautiful, beautiful baskets you've ever seen. And if you want them to make something special for you, you can pick out your plants, pick out your container, and we'll pot it up here for you as well. So there is a fee for that, but it's a very minimal fee. And it takes maybe a couple of days, just depends on how logged we are with backlog and stuff. But it's usually a pretty quick service. So yeah, you can do it 2 ways, one for free or one for a charge. and leave it here with us and then come back and pick it up later. Or we can deliver it to you also if you live locally here in Orange County as well.
How do they do in partial shade?
So they can handle it a little bit. They're not going to be super thrilled with partial shade, because what will happen is they'll kind of start to stretch, and the flowers that are getting ready to open up are not going to be as big as the ones that you see originally to start. They're going to start getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I would say with these, honestly, you want about 6 to 8 hours. 8 hours would be the best. A full sun exposure is going to make them so much more happy. They'll get a little kind of limp and kind of leggy and almost like floppy if they're not getting enough sun, and your flowers will be smaller. So truly full sun is best. If you're doing something where you're just poking them in some pots and you want it super cute for something like Easter or Mother's Day next to your front door, I mean, because it is a buy two get one free, it's not that much of a huge investment. To put them someplace like that just as a temporary thing, that's totally fine. It's just like buying cut flowers, right? So I always tell people, don't feel guilty about that, because we buy cut flowers all the time, and those are flowers that we put in our house, we just enjoy temporarily, and then we wind up throwing them away. So if you do something like this up against the front door for a special occasion, that's totally fine. Any other questions?
If I plant them from chromes, will they come back next year?
So I don't have really good luck with my ranunculus coming back. They really want to be a lot cooler. So I would say if you live more like up in the mountains, you'll probably have a better time with them to come back for you. But they're not something that come back really consistently for me. The summertime stuff is the stuff that I have a much easier time coming back. Dahlias for sure. Dahlias, if you ever seen what the dahlia bulbs look like, it's like a just giant version of this on steroids. It is this little fingery, weird banana kind of creepy looking things that you put in the ground as well. So the dahlia bulbs I have very, very good luck with coming back. With the ranunculus, I don't have so much luck with those coming back. However, if you're doing that and you're actually doing this, because this is something where you want to have planted it in the winter time for a spring flower, and it's just like with the summer bulbs, you want to plant it in the springtime for the summer flowers. You can obviously do it where you get it a lot more cheap, because you'll buy them in a bag and you'll get quite a few of them, but then you're putting the work into making them so big and beautiful like these are now. So it is a really great way to do it, but I don't usually have luck with them coming back. I don't ever take them out of the ground either, because we don't have winters, we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So it's something that you can just kind of let die down. If you have a little bit of green come back and maybe even a little bit of flower, that's awesome, but it's not necessarily something that you're going to get to come back for you the next year.
Okay, my ranunculus only flowers when I buy them and plant them. After those blooms die, how can I get them to bloom another round or so?
So you want to always make sure that you're definitely keeping them deadheaded. And when you're buying your plant, you want to look and make sure that there's a lot of new flower bulbs on it. Because if you look at this one, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on here. Deadheading is key. So anything that is an annual plant like this, its primary job is to set seeds. That's why it's making this really, really beautiful flower. So you want to make sure that it never gets to that point. So keep them deadheaded always. That will, and it's the same thing with vegetables, like picking your tomatoes, picking your shelling peas, things like that. Always pick them, because they'll make more and more and more. And then fertilize. And fertilize specifically with something with a very high number. So if you look at this middle number here, you want that high middle number. So something that's going to force out blooms. The fertilizer and all the energy that they have stored in them for this year only lasts maybe about a month, and you need to continually fertilize with these. This one is my favorite one with these, because they're a shorter lived plant, so I want to make sure I get as many flowers as absolutely possible. So if you look at this flower and bloom one, that middle number is a 26. So this one is a really great one to keep them flowering and flowering and flowering. And you want to use this one about once a month. You can even use it at half the recommended amount and do it every 2 weeks to keep that really consistent kind of beautiful flower. And especially because to me these just totally make me think Easter and Mother's Day, and that's usually when you have people coming over and you have really nice gatherings. So I like to do that half strength, but do it every 2 weeks, so they have a really consistent fertilizer to keep them really, really full and really beautiful. I planted these underneath some citrus trees. I have 2 little beautiful kumquat trees and these nice black urns, and I just shove them full with all of these beautiful ranunculus. and some nice pretty little Philly flowers that are coming down over the sides, some Bacopa and Scavola. And I fertilize like crazy because I'm going to have some friends come over for Easter and I want them to look really beautiful for Mother's Day. So I make sure that I do it half strength with this one particularly every 2 weeks. Makes a huge difference. If you don't have this one at home and you have your rose and flower one, that's totally fine to do as well. But still just do the regular monthly feeding with that. And again, just don't get the powder in the petals of the heads or in between the stems and the leaves, because it gets really kind of funky and gross. So you definitely want to make sure that you're careful, and when you're putting that powder down, you're really getting down in between the plants and putting it on the ground, not just sprinkling it all over the top, because that definitely won't be good for them.
Is that the Disneyland gazebo behind you?
So we are getting ready for spring opening. I'm super excited. That's coming up here in March. If you've ever been here for spring opening, it is fantastic. We put so much extra work into just making everything look absolutely beautiful and absolutely perfect. But this is not the Disneyland gazebo behind me. This is a new gazebo that we just put up. It's maybe been here for a week, because you haven't seen it on live stream yet, so it hasn't been here for a month yet. But no, isn't that absolutely gorgeous? It's so totally beautiful. The Disneyland gazebo is actually up in the restaurant. It is the original Disneyland gazebo that they built to be on the main street at Disneyland, that the band used to play in, and it's got a really kind of neat, rich history. And now we have it here, and it was originally painted white. We've stripped it all down so you can see the wood underneath, and the wood is just so beautiful. So that's up in the restaurant. You can actually eat inside of there, which is really kind of cool. We do have a replica of that in the corner on the outside of the store, so as you drive by you can see that. It's really kind of become the symbol here at Rogers Gardens. Even our name tags, us who have the older name tags, have the gazebo on it. But no, this one is not the Disneyland gazebo, but this one is for sale, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's so pretty. They just built it. They built it so quickly too. I was really shocked. It went up in like maybe an hour, if even that. But it's really kind of beautiful, and it's neat because it's one of the first things you see when you come in. So I was really excited to be able to be here in front of it and have that really nice, beautiful backdrop for y'all.
I planted bulbs and half of them did not come up. What did I do wrong?
It depends on where you're putting them. Also, you got to be really particular about the depth of how deeply you plant your bulbs. If you plant them too low or if you plant them too high. If you plant them too low, a lot of times they won't come up at all. If you plant them too high, they'll try, but they'll get like floppy and little and small, and they'll never fully grow into their own. So really do your research on that. And even me, I don't have it all memorized with how deep to plant my bulbs. I just planted some new dahlias, and it's been quite a while since I planted dahlias. I had to remove some stuff in my garden to make space for some new stuff, and I had to just do a quick Google search. And I never eyeball things. Some people are really great at that. They can look at something and go, oh, that's so many inches. I'm just the worst at that. So I always get out my old handy ruler that was passed down to me from my grandma that I still have, and I just make sure that I use that to make sure that I'm doing it at the right depth and I'm not doing it too deep. So it's really crucial. So that could definitely be an issue. When you're doing things from bulbs, that's when you want to use this fertilizer. You want to put this in the ground, in the hole, and mix it up a little bit and be really consistent with that. Also too, they're not going to necessarily look like this quite yet either, right? These have been grown in a greenhouse where they've been like super controlled environment, super controlled with their food. So they might not be up yet, and that's totally fine. You might have some stuff, but if you're not getting anything at all, chances are it's probably planted too deep. The water wasn't consistent enough, or it could be an exposure problem with not enough sun, because these really truly want to have a lot of sun. There's not a lot of bulbs out there that don't want full sun. There's a few, like some of the begonias and things, but most of them are really truly a full sun thing.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions for today.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, if you guys ever have any questions, or I answer a question here for you, but I don't have all the information about what's going on, you can always give us a call here. That way we can get a little more information from you specifically. If you came into this too late and you have some questions, still put them down below and we'll answer all those questions for you as well. And it's just a really fun thing to be able to do this and show you all the really cool things that we have going on. Again, this is the flower of the month, so it is a buy two, get one free deal, which is really amazing. So if you want to put in that really beautiful pop of color, this is the time to absolutely do that. Make sure that you're signed up for our email list because we've got all kinds of fun things coming up. We have our spring opening coming up. We just wrapped up Tomato Mania. We have tons of tomatoes, but you never want to be late to these things because it's always really the best at the very beginning because that's when everything is here. We get so many questions about when the Disney rose is coming in, so if you're on that email list, you will know when those roses come in. You'll know all that new stuff that we have coming up in our summer programs with hummingbirds, just all kinds of fun stuff always happening here. There's always something neat and fun happening here at Rogers Garden, so make sure you tune in for that kind of stuff. Check out our YouTube page too, because there's all kinds of fantastic videos there as well. You've got a question about something, I guarantee we have a video about it. There's tons and tons of videos there about all the really fun stuff that we have going on here. Everything from plants to place settings to Christmas trees. There's like literally everything is there for you. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Every Tuesday and Thursday we're doing consistent videos. Now we have stuff coming up on Friday with houseplants. I do a monthly video on Saturdays at the beginning, first Saturday of every month, so you can see all of the things that you need to do in your garden for that month. So there is one there, and if you missed out on that, go back and check that one out because there's a lot of information there as well. So be well and be safe and happy gardening, everybody. Bye.